Musanze FC are a small football club from Rwanda. Their biggest achievement is finishing third in the league last season, but I am about to make them continental giants. I've been sent their jersey by Sangalo, and they've challenged me to win Musanze the African Champions League. Doing that with a team from Rwanda will be tough, because no team from Rwanda has ever made the group stage of the tournament, let alone win the whole thing. Our star man is club captain Patrick Ntijanyama, who's going to be the heartbeat of our squad protecting the back line. If they do get past him though, Shafiq Bakaki was named in the real-life Rwandan Premier League Team of the Season. At the other end of the pitch though, we are relying on Nigerian Inemese Sunday to get us the goals that we need. Our first game of the season is away at 21-time Rwandan champions APR FC. They will be our biggest obstacle to success domestically. We're lining up in a simple 4-3-3, where we use some short passing to try and get up the pitch quickly and put pressure on the opposition defence. But sure enough, APR were knocking on the door, coming close twice in the first 10 minutes of the game, but we made them pay for their missed opportunities. Centre midfielder Valerie Underwayo was given the ball on the edge of the area, and he decided to score an incredible goal to get our challenge up and running. However, APR were able to get back on level terms as they split our defence straight down the middle, and they were almost in for a second goal until our defenders made a tactical foul. Only he was forgetting he was already on a yellow card, so he got sent off. But 2 minutes into the second half, an APR cross was met by the head of their right winger, who gave them the lead. Then a calamity of errors at the back eventually led to APR scoring a decisive third goal and defeat us on the opening day of the season. We've got a lot of work to do if we want to be on top of the table come the end of the season. But winning was harder than I thought it would be. After a couple of draws and defeats, we finally won our first game of the season in the 5th league match, thanks to a late winner from Gisisu who started to find a rich vein of form. Our backup striker helped us win our next 3 games as we thought we turned a corner in November. But as we headed into the Christmas period, our form wavered once again, meaning that at the AFCON break, we're only 7th in the table and 11 points away from the top spot. Only one team qualifies for the CAF Champions League, whilst the team in second place goes into the Europa League equivalent, the CAF Confederation Cup. So we need a huge improvement, which is what we got. I tweaked our tactic slightly over the AFCON break, and Inemese Sunday loved it. The Nigerian turned into prime Victor Osimhen as he scored for fun in the second half of the season. Whatever the opposition team's defences tried, it just didn't work, as he scored in 10 of our 16 games after the AFCON break. However, we did still lose to our big rivals APR FC, as well as Rayon Sports, the team with the second most amount of league titles in Rwanda, as they scored in the 96th minute to win. But our inspired form saw us leap up to 4th place in the table, gaining 5 points on APR FC in the second half of the season. So whilst we don't have any continental football next season, if we can recapture the form we had in the second half of this season, I think we could be in for it next time around. However, there is one rule I haven't yet told you about. As you know, Sangalo have challenged me to win the AFC Champions League with Musanze, but we have to do it by keeping at least half of our squad made up of Rwandan players. And given that the top 5 players by average rating this season aren't from Rwanda, we're already on the back foot. Sangalo, by the way, are a really cool company. They partner with clubs from around the world and sell their jerseys in markets they wouldn't be able to reach on their own. So that means that every purchase you make has a real tangible effect on the club. For example, Musanze haven't yet won a league title in Rwanda, but by purchasing their jersey through Sangalo, they'll have an extra revenue stream to help them reach their goals. Plus, Sangalo are now in the kit manufacturing game, meaning these kits are even more unique and connected to the club. For example, the area is famous for being home to African mountain gorillas, who obviously live in the mountains. The club badge already features both gorillas and mountains, but they're also now featured within the very pattern of the shirt. something the club would never be able to do with an off-the-shelf Nike or Adidas kit. So it's the best of both worlds. Us shirt collectors, and I believe this is now the 47th kit in my collection, we get some really cool and unique kits, whilst also having a real impact on the clubs we're buying from. So head to Sangalo and check out all the clubs they're partnered with. There's always new teams being added via the link in the top line of the description. Anyway, I think I found a way to make sure half of our team is always filled up with Rwandan players. I've signed 3 players from this season's youth intake who actually don't seem that far away from the first team, particularly Mohamed Banamwana. Comparing him to Valerie Underwayo, who played 28 times for us last season, there isn't really a massive difference. So hopefully the youth intake keeps giving us stars. There is one small issue though. We are £109,000 in debt, so we can't improve our youth facilities and we have zero transfer budget. And to make matters worse, some of the best players decided that they didn't want to sign a new contract. So we're going to have to poach some players from other clubs who have expiring contracts and hope for the best. But so many players were asking for wages that we just can't afford yet. So in the end, we only made 3 signings. Hassan comes in to play at right back, Christian arrives as cover for the left-hand side, whilst Joachim Ajera comes in to cover the entire attacking midfield. Fortunately, Inemese Sunday continued where he left off from last season, helping us to win our first 3 games. But he wasn't our top scorer. Left inside forward, Kamanzi Ashraf got into a regular routine of scoring, picking up 11 goals by the halfway point of the season. Now, we weren't perfect, because we did lose a couple of games to Rwanda Sport and AS Kigali. We also conceded a 91st minute equaliser to our big rivals APRFC, but they've actually been having a terrible season. They're down in 6th place, 11 points off the top spot, which is exactly where we sit. But we're in a tight battle with Police FC and Rwanda Sports, and I am concerned that Rwanda Sports have 2 of the league's top 3 goal scorers. So when we beat them 2-1 to effectively knock them out of the title race as Gasisu scored a late winner, we were feeling pretty confident. Until we lost 2 games in a row, first to AS Kigali at home in front of our own fans, and then away from home against Police FC. Rumours are swirling that they arrested half of our team before the match. But aside from those results, we just kept winning, as Inemese Sunday overtook Ashraf to be the club's top scorer once again. Even better, Police FC had a huge drop-off, meaning that with 3 games to go, if we win our next game against Gasogi, we lift the title and qualify for next season's Champions League. However, Gasogi's keeper is our former goalkeeper, Modu Job, who left the club at the end of his contract. So if anyone knows how to stop our strike force, it's going to be him. The horrible weather contributed to a mundane match where neither side were really creating many clear-cut chances. That was until the 63rd minute, when we had a period of sustained possession, but we just couldn't get the ball into the penalty area. So instead, Inemese Sunday took a shot from distance that beat Job and was helped into the back of the net by the post. Then all we had to do was protect our lead, and as the clock ticked down, a 1-0 win means we're crowned champions of Rwanda for the very first time, and we get our first shot at the Champions League. We had 4 players hit 14 goals or more this season, but as you can see, most of them aren't Rwandan. Currently, 18 of our 26-man squad are Rwandan, so we do have a bit more scope to sign some foreign players. But we had no talent come through our youth intake this season. Jimmy was our best player, and whilst he can run fast and shoot the ball, he's pretty useless at everything else. For Season 3, we have a huge budget. £554. Rather than spend it all at once, we just signed a bunch of players on free transfers. But our world was about to be rocked. Inemese Sunday has decided he wants to explore his options at the end of his contract. I told him the club and fans adore him, why would he want to leave? But he seems to think his career is more important than my love and admiration. I tried my best to convince him otherwise, but we're going to have to play by his rules. So we have to make a succession plan. We signed 7 new players this off-season, but the one I'm most hopeful for is Patient Wasu. If Inemese Sunday does leave the club, This guy will be waiting patiently in the wings for his chance. We've been drawn against Cotton FC from Benin in the Champions League, with the news article suggesting that we're the bigger club. So we travelled to Benin for the first leg, but we are missing 3 key players who are away on international duty with Rwanda. But we didn't need to worry. Inemese Sunday scored the game's opening goal 2 minutes in, and then 2 minutes later, Jockey Majera scored a second. And then just another 2 minutes later, Sunday made it 3-0. In fact, we went on to win the game 12-0 with Patient Wasu coming off the bench to score twice. We only just managed to win the second leg 4-0, which sees us progress to the first round. The African Champions League is a little bit confusing. Everyone goes into a preliminary round, to then play in the first round, to then go to the group stage. We've been drawn against Al Merrick from Sudan, but away from home, despite battling hard for 40 minutes, we conceded twice in the final 5 minutes of the first half. And then a third goal right at the second half meant we had a mountain to climb. But we did recover. Patient Wasu came off the bench to score twice late on, getting us back into the game, making it all to play for in the second leg. And when left-back Gad Ndize scored first, we thought we'd turn the result around and progress to the group stage. But our opponents defended well, and then scored from a corner to draw the game 1-1 and knock us out 4-3 on aggregate. So still, no team from Rwanda has ever made the group stage of the Champions League. Hopefully we'll get another shot next season, but to do that, we have to go back-to-back in the league. This season, we had a battle between Inemese Sunday and Patient Wasu. Sunday always started up front, whereas Patient would start on either wing, rotating with our other inside forwards. Sunday scored twice against our big rivals APR FC, but Patient scored a hat-trick in the same game as we thumped them 7-0 away from home. They helped us go unbeaten in the first half of the season before the AFCON break. Sunday has 14 goals in all competitions, but Patient has 15. Although he has been on penalty duties, which is the reason he's 1 goal ahead. Despite only dropping 4 points, Gasogi are only 3 points behind us, having been equally as impressive. However, in the second half of the season, we did start to falter. APR FC got revenge for our 7-0 thrashing by beating us 1-0 with an absolute wonder goal before we suffered 3 bizarre defeats. Rayon Sports beat us 4-1, our worst defeat in 3 seasons. Then AS Kigali did the exact same to us, winning 4-1. But that was nothing compared to the 6-1 defeat we suffered at the hands of Police FC. Couple that with an APR resurgence, with 1 game to go, they sit ahead of us by a point in the Premier League table. We're away from home against 8th place Kiyovu Sport. And we started doing our jobs immediately, as Inemese Sunday scored the game's opening goal within 3 minutes. The issue is, APR scored 2 minutes into their game. Now, our game was topsy-turvy. Both teams were scoring goals, and both teams were given penalties, which we both went on to score. We were even given a second penalty, which we missed. But it didn't really matter, because APR were now 2-0 up in their game. So despite us winning 6-5 on the night, it didn't matter. We end up in 4th place. Wait, what? How are we in 4th place? Oh. Turns out I can't read. When us and APR only had 1 game left to play, both Kigali and Gasogi had 2 games to play. And as I smashed the spacebar to continue the game, I missed them both win their matches in hand on us. Which means that Kigali came from out of nowhere to win the title. And 4th place means no continental football. But worst of all, heading into season 4, we are back down to 0 transfer budget, down from last season's high of £554. Plus, we're losing Inemese Sunday, who has refused to sign a new contract. And we can't even replace him because the club are under a transfer embargo pending a takeover. And when it finally did go through towards the end of a transfer window, we weren't even given any more money by the new owners. So I feel like we are at an all-time low. We need to get the club back to a feel-good atmosphere. We have had another good talent coming through the youth intake. Jean-Paul Nkazingabo will provide competition at right back despite being just 15 years old. Plus, one of the players from Season 1's intake, Henrique Jr., was looking like they could maybe take Inamese Sunday's striker role. Plus, this is the point where the other regens from Season 1 at other clubs have their contracts expiring. So I'm going to try and poach as many talented youngsters as I possibly can, which in the end only ended up being 3 players. But they could all be ballers, especially our new centre-back, Audi, who's already played 58 games at his former club and at the age of 18, on paper, could be the best player at the club. It turns out we've been clipping Henrique Jr.'s wings by confining him to the bench, because he scored both of our goals on the opening day of the season. And whilst Patient Wasu was also chipping in with a few goals from a left wing, this season it was well and truly the Henrique show, as the 18-year-old was able to use his pace, acceleration and off-the-ball movement to beat defenders and create clear-cut opportunities. We only had one slip-up in the first half of the season, and that was losing to reigning champions AS Kigali. But luckily for us, they'd slipped up elsewhere. So currently we are top of the table, level on points with APR FC. But somehow, despite them having extra games in the Confederation Cup, have played 3 more league games than us. We also made a January signing. Stephen Okello signed his contract in summer, but we had to wait for him to turn 18 before the Ugandan right inside forward with 1 international cap could join the club. And on his debut, we lost 1-0 away from home against Rayon Sport, which is a great sign of how good he will be. However, we continue to go on a tear for the rest of the season with, you guessed it, Henrique Jr. scoring a vast majority of our goals. So by the end of the season, we ended up back on top of the table to claim our 2nd league title. Henrique Jr. had an incredible season in front of goal, but only because Patient Wasu had an incredible season setting him up. And sneaking in with 14 goals is Stephen Okello, which is incredibly impressive given he was only here since January. So I think we found our front 3 to build around for the next few seasons. We just need to make sure the rest of the team is up to scratch. So I took a huge gamble and released 10 players. 9 of them are Rwandan. As per the rules, we need to make sure half the squad is made up of Rwandans, so we need to sign a lot of players. So 7 new players came into the squad, meaning we have a smaller team than last season. Notably, we've signed Robert Saba from AS Kigali. He scored 26 goals in the league last season. Despite this though, he's going to have to play backup to Henrique Jr. Importantly, it weakens our opposition, giving us a better chance of winning a 3rd title. We also signed Lewis Kravid, who doesn't look that good yet, but notably, he's the first player we've signed from a European club, Belenenses in Portugal. This season, we've been given another kind draw in the Champions League preliminary round, as we rolled past Mighty Barrel from Liberia, winning 6-3 on aggregate to reach the first round, the stage we lost at 2 seasons ago. Here we have to play CS Sfax from Tunisia, who we managed to keep to a goalless draw in Rwanda. Given that they dominated the game though, we fully expected to be beaten in Tunisia. However, Ajera opened up the scoring, adding to his 2 goals that he scored against Mighty Barrel in the prelim rounds. And then in the second half, Karnot Shami, a Sumasani at right back, made it 2-0, meaning we won the match and become the first Rwandan side to reach the Champions League group stage. But we've been given a very tricky draw against South Africa's Orlando Pirates, as well as Azam FC and Young Africans, both from Tanzania. However, we were able to hold our own against some of Africa's best clubs. If it wasn't for an 88th minute equaliser from Azam's goalkeeper of all players, we would have won 1-0. Frustratingly, Orlando Pirates did beat us 1-0 at home, but we really should have beaten Young Africans as we totally dominated the game. At the AFCON break, we sit 3rd in Group A, but we still have an outside shot of qualifying. At the same time, we were totally dominant in the league as Henrique Jr. and Patient Wasu scored a bajillion goals. At the AFCON break, we are top of the table. But if APR win their 2 games in hand, which they're likely to, they'll only be 2 points behind us. Back to the Champions League, and it all came together against Azam. Patrick Wasu scored at the start of the second half to give us the lead, whilst Henrique Jr. doubled our goal tally in the 88th minute. which was lucky because Azam scored moments later. But we held on to walk away with our first group stage win. Our game at home against Young Africans was an all-timer. The Tanzanians took the lead early on, but we managed to pull one back and then take the lead of the game ourselves. But obviously, the team in green came back and levelled up the scores, before then going on to take back the lead of the game early in the second half. I thought the match was done when they then scored a fourth to make it 4-2, but our boys on the pitch thought otherwise. Henrique Jr. scored 2 goals in 2 minutes to make it 4-4 on the scoreline, which is exactly how the game finished as we bring home a hard-earned point. So we could make the quarterfinals if we beat Orlando Pirates. But the South Africans flexed their muscles at home and totally outclassed us, winning the game 4-0 and firmly putting us in our place. We also needed Young Africans to beat Azam, which they didn't. So even if we had beaten Orlando Pirates, it wouldn't have been enough to qualify. But I am very proud of our exploits in our first Champions League group stage appearance. Hopefully we can have another go at it next season. And the good results gave us enormous confidence in the league, as we dominated everyone else. A few draws did creep in against some of the better sides, but that's to be expected. In the end, we had an invincible season to lift the league title once again and make it back to the Champions League. Henrique Jr. just about won the goal scoring race, but with 21 assists on top of 32 goals, it's hard to look past Patient Wasu as our star player. One huge bonus of the Champions League has been the money. We made £871,000 in prize money this season, which means for the first time we have a healthy bank balance. So I was finally able to convince the board to improve our training facilities so we can do a better job of getting our young players to reach their potential. Incredibly, we've also been given a budget of £114,000. The kicker is, 99% of players at this level just don't have a transfer value, so you can just offer nothing and the other club will just accept the bid. But as we continue to progress in the Champions League and grow the club's reputation, soon we might be able to sign players from leagues in Egypt or South Africa, and those players will cost money. But money doesn't solve everything. Kravit, who we signed from a Portuguese club last season on a 1-year deal, doesn't want to sign a new contract as he's concerned about the standard of living in Rwanda. I also need to get over my personal attachment to some players. For example, I adore Mohamed Banamwana. He was the first good player through our youth intake, and he's been ever present in the team since. But when I compare him to other players who are now interested in joining the club, he's not quite as good as them. So I need to move aside my personal love for some of these players for the good of the whole squad. So we signed a few really talented young foreign players. Nigerian Isaiah Ayafor is the new heartbeat of our midfield, and he's joined by compatriot Seyi Yakubu, who will be our rock at centre-back. With these top players, I expect us to do better in the Champions League this season. That was until I saw our draw. In the preliminary rounds, we're against Kaizer Chiefs from South Africa. There aren't many teams in Africa who could beat them. So our Champions League campaign this season could well be over before it's even begun. I organised a few friendlies so our new players could get used to our system. Despite this, the board and fans were still expecting us to lose. But I wasn't. And for good reason. Although Kaizer Chiefs scored first, the home crowd pushed us on and Henrique Jr. scored an equaliser to draw the first leg 1-1. So I felt really confident as we travelled to South Africa for the second leg. It might have been misplaced confidence though. Kaizer Chiefs went on to dominate the match and score 4 goals to dump us out of the Champions League at the first hurdle. I guess it was an unlucky draw, but it shows just how much we still need to improve. So let's speed through the season to hopefully have another shot of getting the Champions League next season. APR FC beat us 1-0 early on in the season, whilst Rayon Sport scored an 88th minute penalty to inflict a second defeat on us. But obviously, we still won a vast majority of our games. But at the halfway point of the season, we're neck and neck with AS Kigali and APR FC, with Rayon Sports not far behind. Luckily, we did beat APR FC 3-1 in the second match of the season against them, but AS Kigali got the better of us, as they won a hard-fought game 2-0. Then we were absolutely blindsided by Gasogi, who out of nowhere thumped us 6-1, our joint biggest loss of the video. As a result, we slipped down to second in the table as the 4-horse race goes right down to the wire. We kept doing our job of taking each game as it comes and making sure we won. The most important thing was to earn 3 points and put pressure on the teams around us, which worked. AS Kigali and Rayon Sport dropped points, meaning we get back to the top of the table. But APRFC have matched us, and if we fail to win on the final day of the season, we could lose the title. Our issue is we have 3 players suspended, including Henrique Jr. and Patient Wasu. And we have to play Rayon Sports, one of the best teams in the league. APR put the pressure on as they went 2-0 up early in their match, taking control of the title fight, whereas we kept missing golden opportunities, until we were able to put the ball in the back of the net, as our left back Latulu scored what could only be described as the most important goal of the season. Then we were very fortunate to be given a penalty 15 minutes later, which backup striker Saba coolly put away to extend the lead. And to be honest, I think someone could have been paying off the refs, because we were given another penalty for the softest foul I have ever seen. But I won't complain as Saba made it 3-0. So at this point, it didn't matter that APR were winning 4-0. We clearly had the referee on our side, as he gave us a third penalty, which Saba scored again to complete his hat-trick. It didn't even matter that when we were given a 4th penalty, Saba went on to miss it. The job had been done, and we're once again champions of Rwanda and make it back to the Champions League. It was another incredible season for Patient Wasu, who improved on his assist numbers despite fewer games than last season, which is also the reason why Henrique Jr. didn't quite get as many as the previous campaign. But after a very strange Season 6, we need to make a huge leap forward in Season 7. This year, we only made 4 signings, but they mean significant changes in our attack. I think Jean Altara has the edge over Stephen Okello on the right wing, so he'll take his spot. And the arrival of national team striker Prince Rudasingwa might mean the end of the road for Henrique Jr., who is more physical, but is lacking in other areas. After last season's debacle in the Champions League, I'm hoping for an easier draw in the preliminary round. Oh, you've got to be joking me. Wydad Casablanca, the runners-up from last season's competition. Once again, we prepared with a few friendlies and hoped for the best. But annoyingly at home, we lost 1-0. Even more so because we missed a penalty, and based on the match stats, you could very easily argue that we were the better side and should have won. So I knew away from home we had a mammoth job to do. Now I started going crazy when Nigerian midfielder Isaiah Ayafor scored 38 minutes in. I then got even more excited when Ajeret scored a second goal for us 3 minutes later, and I almost fell off my chair when left winger Jean Altera made it 3-0 in another 3 minutes. But straight from the kickoff after the third goal, Casablanca tried to play the ball down the left-hand side. And this is where our right back Mohamed Gomis was sent off for a second yellow card offence, which then allowed Wydad Casablanca to get one back before the half-time whistle was blown. Then 5 minutes into the second half, they scored again, making it 3-3 on aggregate. We battled hard with 10 men, but it just wasn't enough. Wydad scored again in the 96th minute to make it 3-3 on the night and 4-3 on aggregate. But in the dying moments of the game, Patient Wasu scored in the 90th minute to make it 4-4 and we win the tie on away goals, knocking out one of the best football clubs in Africa. Comparatively, our first round tie against Gazelle from Chad was an absolute breeze. We won 16-0 on aggregate to finally get back to the Champions League group stage. However, we've been given an incredibly tough draw against ASEC Mimosas from Ivory Coast, Hearts of Oak from Ghana, and Pyramids from Egypt. But if we can beat Wydad Casablanca, surely we can beat anyone. And we really felt that when we welcomed Mimosas to Rwanda and beat them 2-0 to get our group stage off to winning ways. However, when we travelled to Ghana, Hearts of Oak had too much heart. Despite our best efforts, we just couldn't do enough, eventually losing 2-1. They're going to be dancing in the streets of Hearts of Oak tonight. But the performance against Pyramids really surprised me. We scored 4 minutes into the game, but thanks to some questionable defensive choices, we were pegged back. But once again, the referee came to our rescue. He spotted a handball from a corner and awarded us a penalty, which Patient Wasu scored to win the game 2-1. Thanks to Pyramids and Mimosas drawing with each other, halfway through the group stage, we sit on top of the pile. We're also on top of the league at the halfway point of the season, having won every single game so far. But we can't relax as Rayon Sports are right on our tails. Back to the Champions League, and despite Mohamed Gomis getting his second red card of the tournament, 9 minutes into the game, the home advantage saw us prevail as Jean Altera scored an 88th minute winner to secure all 3 points. But we couldn't beat ASEC Mimosas as we gave away a very dubious early penalty, which they scored to win the game 1-0. This means it all comes down to our match against Pyramids, who took the lead within 30 seconds. But Patient Wasu pulled back a goal to draw the game 1-1. And that was enough to keep the Egyptians behind us in the group to make it through to the quarterfinals. Here we're up against Enyimba Aba from Nigeria, back-to-back Champions League winners in 2003 and 2004. Away from home, we took the lead through right-back Mohamed Gomis. It's pretty odd not to see him being sent off. But the Nigerians proved that they were the better team on the night, as they scored either side of half-time to win the first leg 2-1. But they just couldn't handle the conditions in Rwanda, as once we took the lead of the game 4 minutes in, we never looked like giving it up. We scored once more in the first half, and then twice in the second half to cruise through to the semi-finals. But here, we're going to have to beat ES Tunis, one of Africa's very best teams. Naturally, they took the lead in the first half of the first leg, but if we've learned anything, it's that our team are determined. Once again, we saw Mohamed Gomis score a crucial goal to level the scores before Stephen Okello gave us the lead, although I don't think he knew much about it. Sadly though, we couldn't quite hold on to the victory. In the 92nd minute, Tunis scored an equaliser. So as we travelled to Tunisia, we knew we had a mountain to climb. Especially when, you guessed it, Mohamed Gomis was sent off for a 3rd time this season in the Champions League. As a result, Tunis were able to launch themselves into a 3-0 lead, including scoring a penalty. But late in the game, we pushed for a comeback. We didn't score just once, we scored twice to put ourselves back in contention of reaching the final, only for it to be snatched away as Tunis made it 4-2 on the night and won 6-4 on aggregate. The Champions League fairy tale is over. At least for this season. We also went on to win every single game in the league, so clearly our team is almost perfect. We just need a final few jigsaw pieces to get the team together. With £1.1 million in the bank account, I convinced the board to spend all of it to once again upgrade our training facilities. I think the previous upgrade had been a huge part of our continental success. Our reputation has been increasing by playing more games in the Champions League, and better facilities also attracts better quality players. And that was signalled this season by the arrival of 2 Algerians. Salim Ben Sharifa is going to be our new holding midfielder with his incredible teamwork and work rate. And when a striker as good as Lamine Damani presents themselves to you, you have to sign them. He will score us so many goals. After 2 tough seasons, we've finally been given a nice draw in the Champions League, as we take on Atoho Doyo from Congo. Ben Sharifa scored on his debut as we won 5-1 away from home in Congo, and then in the second leg, Lamine Damani scored his first 2 goals for the club in another 5-1 win to progress 10-2 on aggregate. This sets us up against Generation Foot in the first round, a go-to destination for Football Manager players looking for Senegalese wonderkids. Trust me, their facilities are top-notch. Scout their players. Thankfully for us though, their wonderkids weren't quite good enough, as we beat them 2-1 in the home leg thanks to another brace from Lamine Damani. We got off to a good start in Senegal as AF4 scored our opener, but Generation Foot fired back quickly. Not once, but twice to make the scores 3-3 on aggregate. But thankfully, we have patient Wasu, who levelled the scores on the night to give us back the aggregate lead, before then scoring another goal to win the game on the night and take us through to the group stage. This season, we're up against Nigeria's Enyimba Aba, as well as Sundowns and Supersport from South Africa. But this season, Rayon Sports have also made it through to the group stage, meaning Rwanda have 2 teams in the group stage, which is incredible. Away at Supersport, we took an early 2-goal lead, both from corners. But then we threw it away, as the home side scored from their own corner and then equalised late on from open play to rescue a point. 2 weeks later, we were back in South Africa and taking the lead against Sundowns. But once again, we threw it all away as we let them equalise before half-time. This match was worse though, because the team in yellow went on to score twice more in the second half and win the tie. But at home against Enyimba, it was the other way around. The Nigerians took the lead and we rescued a late point, scoring thanks to a heavily deflected shot in the 93rd minute to draw 1-1. So at the moment, it's not looking good for either us or Rayon Sports, as we both sit third in our groups. But we are 9 points ahead of them in the league at the halfway point of the season, as once again, we've won every single game. Back to the Champions League, and we drew away from home against Enyimba, meaning we have it all to do heading into the final 2 group stage games against the South Africans. Luckily for us though, we dominated Supersport, scoring 5 goals without reply to give ourselves the best possible chance of qualifying for the knockouts. If we can beat Sundowns, we're through. Which is exactly what we did, as we scored 4 goals in the first half on our way to a 4-2 victory, meaning we leapfrogged Sundowns on goal difference to finish second in the group. Incredibly, Rayon Sports also managed to qualify, so we have 2 teams in the knockout stages. We're also now trading with Rayon, as they get to play Enyimba, whilst we have to play 3-time Champions League winners Asante Kotoko from Ghana. At home in the first leg, everything went perfectly. Henrique Jr. was given the start, and he scored 9 minutes into the game. We then doubled our lead early in the second, following some nice footwork from Latula. Henrique then scored a 3rd goal, but we killed the spirit of Asante Kotoko when we scored a 4th goal to win the game 4-0 late on. The match stats showed utter domination. There is no way we aren't making the semi-finals. The second leg, where we're in our white away kits, should be an absolute breeze. So, somehow we lost 5-0. But it was even worse for Rayon Sports. They won their first leg 7-3 with an incredible performance at home, but then also lost the second leg 5-0 to also get knocked out of the tournament by 1 goal. I genuinely can't believe we've both been shafted like that. Once again, we won the league title with maximum points. Our team is just way too good for this division. Plus, new striker Lamine Damani was the first player we've ever had score 40 goals across the season, whilst Ibrahim Diarra, a summer signing I didn't think would actually be that important, ended up with 31 assists. Importantly for season 9, we have £108,000 to spend, and I think for the first time in 9 seasons, we're going to spend some. We splashed £50,000 on Sam Dominique Barlua to start on the left wing as an inside forward. Sadly, this might mean the end of the road for club legend Patient Wasu, who has just broken into the Rwandan national team. We also stole Masiri Sila from Generation Foot for £50,000 to primarily play as a defensive midfielder. But I did have to stop signing players there. We've got 26 players in the squad, and 14 of them are from Rwanda. Remember, the rule is we have to keep at least 50% of the squad from Rwanda, so if we sign any more foreigners, that gets too close for comfort. Especially because if we win the Champions League but break that rule, it doesn't count. First up in the preliminary round, we were against Vitoria from Sao Tome and Principe. We won 11-1 on aggregate, with new boy on the left wing, Sam-Dominique Balua, scoring 4 goals on his debut, but in the first round, we've been drawn against Tunis, in a repeat of the semi-finals from 2 seasons ago. After a quiet first half, it was once again the new boy, Balua, who broke the deadlock, scoring early in the second half. And then we managed to grab ourselves a second on the counter-attack from striker Lamine Damani, winning the home leg 2-0. However, in Tunisia, we conceded a goal 2 minutes into the second half. But we remained composed and earned back our 2-goal aggregate cushion. And to put it beyond all doubt, Mohamed Gomis scored in the 93rd minute to send us to the group stage and knock out one of the pre-tournament favourites. So in the group stage, we once again meet Orlando Pirates and Hearts of Oak, as well as Sfax from Tunisia, who will be very wary of us after what we did to Tunis. First up, we're against Hearts of Oak, and we took the lead 6 minutes in. But the Ghanaians had different ideas, as they scored twice before half-time to take control of the match. To make matters worse, we had a penalty saved, which means we lose our opening fixture. We bounced back away from home against Orlando Pirates, scoring twice in the first half to give ourselves a comfortable lead. We then scored a third early in the second half to secure all 3 points. Sfax were a little trickier to beat, as they scored first in Rwanda, but we ended up scalping another Tunisian side by winning the match 4-2. This gives us a healthy lead over Orlando and Sfax, and one more win could guarantee us a spot in the knockouts. But instead, we got 3 wins, as we beat the Pirates 3-1 at home, Hearts of Oak 3-1 in Ghana, and Sfax 3-0 in Tunisia to go on top of the group and set up a tie against Sundowns, who finished runners-up in Group B. But we made this game incredibly difficult for ourselves, as Sam-Dominique Balua was sent off 6 minutes into the first leg in South Africa. As a consequence, Sundowns were able to score twice, either side of the halftime break, to put us on the brink of elimination. But in the 94th minute, we managed to get one back through Lamine Damani, making the job that we have to do in the second leg slightly more achievable. So when we took the lead 3 minutes into the second leg, all we had to do was hold on for an away goal win. But the players wanted to do it properly. 75 minutes into the game, they found another breakthrough to win 2-0 on the night and 3-2 on aggregate. Next up, we have reigning champion Zamalek from Egypt. But with the home crowd behind us, we scored twice early on to put Zamalek on the back foot. But they're the reigning champions for a reason. They pulled one back early in the second half and had the chance to get back on level terms when the referee gave them a penalty. Obviously, they scored it. But a moment of magic from Balua and Damani means that we win the first leg 3-2 and have a slim advantage. Going to Egypt though is going to be tough. However, we made it look easy, as we scored not once, not twice, but 3 times in the first half to give ourselves a monumental 6-2 aggregate lead. But we got complacent. Zamalek came back in the second half. I wasn't concerned when they scored their first goal. We still have a big lead. Nor was I worried when they made it 3-2 on the night. It's still 6-4 on aggregate. But when they scored a third goal in the 91st minute, I started to panic. Thankfully though, they ran out of time, and we sneak our way through to the final by the skin of our teeth. Here we're up against Nigerian side Rivers United, and neither club have ever won a CAF Champions League. So this is huge for everyone involved. It's also important to remember that the CAF Champions League final is played over 2 legs. The first leg is going to be played at our place, and the second leg is played over in Nigeria. So we have to make the home crowd advantage count, but it was Rivers who were looking the better of the 2 sides early on, causing issues for our defence. But a misplaced pass allowed us to get on the front foot, building down the left-hand side with Balua, who switched the play to right-back Mohamed Gomis. He drove into the penalty area, took a shot, but was denied by the keeper. Just before half-time, we had another clear-cut opportunity, as Balua got the better of his marker, but his shot was just off target. So we have been the better of the 2 sides, but we haven't been able to make it count. I then realised that Rivers are playing a back 5, So I took off the pass into space instruction because there's simply no space to pass into with such a compact defence. And it almost worked. With 8 minutes to go, we were passing the ball around the penalty area when Sila had a shot and was only denied by the woodwork. The game finished 0-0, meaning it's winner takes all in Nigeria next week. Both the board and supporters expect us to lose the game. So I leaned into that, and I told the players that we're the underdogs. Go and prove the entire world wrong. And it worked. The boys were so fired up that inside of just 50 seconds, centre mid Diarra gave us the all-important lead from a set-piece routine. But we have to remain composed. We can't get too excited, which is what some players did, as we snatched at chances and kept making simple mistakes in the back line. Luckily, Rivers United couldn't quite capitalise. But as the game progressed, we calmed down and settled into it. Just before half time, we had another free kick, and rather than lump the ball into the middle, we worked it forwards into the path of the unmarked Barlua, who calmly placed his shot past the keeper, making it 2-0 heading into half time. Now is a time for calm. I put my hands on my hips and simply told the boys that I was happy. Keep it up. Early in the half, we were playing some beautiful passing football, playing the ball forwards past the Rivers midfield and defence, finding the feet of Jean Altera, who did superbly well to nestle the ball into the back of the net and make it 3-0. With a huge lead, it was time to bring on a legend for one last time. On comes my favourite player from the video, Patient Wasu. And of course, moments after he came on, Rivers had their best chance of the game, scoring from the edge of the area with 20 minutes to go. But time was on our side. We kept hold of the ball and watched the clock tick down. Against the odds, we've done it. Musanze FC are the champions of Africa. Remember, if you want a Musanze jersey, go and check out Sangalo, linked in the top line of the description. And then once you've done that, go ahead and watch this video, where I played the worst rated Football Manager games that I could possibly find on the App Store. And actually, I was quite surprised at how good some of these were. Go watch the video to find out what apps I downloaded and see for yourself how good or bad they actually are.